time for another Pathfinder book. This one's the Advanced Race Guide. So this pretty much gives you more options for races. So in the table of contents, what they do, as you can see, is they go through the core races of the player's handbook. They give you, in a sense, like featured races in the second chapter, and then they get into uncommon races. So basically, they're opening up a lot of in a sense, so-called monsters that you can play. And of course, they for like DMs, they give you, of course, players could in a sense build their own race and everything. And of course, they also give indexes to pretty much like round out characters and everything. So they do reference the open game license, good old OGL. Of course, people are probably familiar with the whole OGL fiasco with the D&D lately. Of course, that's for another whole nother topic. So, usual, typical introduction to let you help you navigate this book, give you ideas and what to expect as you're going through this book and everything. So, pretty much like most or all Pathfinder books is they give you a little artwork and then a good old a little story to kind of a little blurb to kind of in a sense open up the chapter to kind of get like wet your teeth type of deal. So, and with this one, as you can see, the core races, what it goes into is it goes into your typical dwarves, elves, gnomes, half orcs, halflings, humans, and half elves as well. And it gives in each section, what they do is they break it down into the usual general description, the racial traits, gives you alternate racial rules. So racial traits, the different subtypes, the favorite class options, what that a particular race tends towards. Now, of course, does that mean you necessarily have to go with that in particular favorite class? No, you don't, because you can always do something out of the ordinary. It does give you archetypes and new racial rules with ideas that you can use so equipment with using the D20 system. They give you ideas for feats, for magical items that are race specific. So for instance, with dwarves, that would be geared more towards axes, and with elves you'd think more towards bows and stuff. So also spells, because think of each race as a separate culture type of deal. So you'd have in a sense cultural items, spells, feats, equipment. Think of it that way as well. So, and then what it does now is it actually gets into the actual the pretty much the nitty-gritty details of each race and everything. So just pretty much in the handbook and everything, it goes through the whole concepts of the character creation and all this stuff that you get for playing that particular race. For instance, dwarfs here, you can see a dark vision, the usual +2 constitution, -2 charisma. They also get +2 wisdom. So they pretty much break it down into the physical description, the idea on the society, their breakdown, and it gets into shows the alternate racial roles. So it gives you ideas on enmity. So for instance, dwarves usually in other iterations like D&D 3rd edition would quite typically had enmity towards giants and stuff. So that's an idea you could do. Of course, here it says I had conflict with elves. So doesn't necessarily have to be the evil good races or the stereotypical ones. So it gives you idea for craftsman, deep warrior. So it gives you ideas to kind of help flush out these characters. So it goes down through all these different the traits and stuff that the typical dwarf would have and everything. So now, does that mean you have to pick everything, or like no, you don't have to. You can kind of pick and choose, because like you could like that's the whole fun of making the characters, is like you can make your character as generic or as unique as you want to, so you can pick and choose. So with getting favorite class options and everything, so like it breaks down like uh, things that you can add to like each class that you would actually play with, like for instance, the here this shows, like for instance, the dwarf fighter, dwarf gunslinger. You could do a dwarf cleric. It gives you ideas and stuff for like class options that you can add to them and everything. So, and it gets actually into like the archetypes and everything. So like for instance, like if you want to take it one step further with the character classes type of deal, it starts off like with here with the dwarf, the exarch or inquisitor, as you can see, and it goes into a whole depth about that and everything. So it gives you a whole different different concepts to be able to like even flesh out your character even more. So, and like what it does is like with these core races, it pretty much goes in depth and everything. So once it gets past the archetypes, you can see it gets into like the weapons. So like for instance, like you can see here like you know, light dwarven boulder, like something that you probably like you could see them throwing or something. The typical war axe, like long axe, long hammer. So typical weapons that like you would probably find that like the dwarf would use. So it gives you ideas for stuff like that, and of course it gives you like different ideas for feats as well for each class. And I gotta apologize if I sound a bit stuffy. I'm kind of like recovering from a cold, so it's on its way out. So anyway, like it gives you, of course, magic items that, like for instance, like a lot of times that the dwarves themselves would probably make, because like in their strongholds they might find use of this, versus like the magic items you'd see the elves use, they probably wouldn't have any use for that. So these can be more like racial specific. Of course, you could open it up to like because maybe quite often like dwarves could have traded with humans and have access to some of the magic human items that are in here. So as a DM and a player, it would be up to you guys to kind of like flesh those details out. So, and of course now it goes with the core races. What it does the same thing for, as what you went through with the dwarves. It does the same thing for elves, and like it goes through the whole concept of like the same setup and everything. So alternate racial rules, class options. You can see like archetypes that like typical like classes would use for like your elven characters. So like for instance, like you can like the ancient lore keeper, spell dancer. Those could be more like magic specific, and sort of like the same thing with spellbinder. So like this one goes in same kind of overarching concept with each character race and everything. So you can see here it gets into the same kind of deal. Like after the feats that a couple of the feats you can see, and of course, like always, it has like most feats have a prerequisite and like the benefit that you can have. Magic items that you can that would be at least most common to elf characters that you'd find maybe in like an elven type campaign, or like a elven character that maybe came out of their nations or whatever. So this pretty much goes like follows the same concept of all the core races. So pretty much go through those kind of quickly. So the only thing that really changes is kind of like the theme, like going from race to race and everything. So it gives you the whole background on your core races that you find, and of course, like you got half elves, and then like going through like the typical same format as before, archetypes, character classes, and like racial rules, equipment, feats, and then of course gets into the magical items, and then you get into actual humans. Of course, half orcs then humans. So what's different with the half orcs is like here is they get +2 to any one ability, and like I remember from playing with third edition that the half orcs would tend to get like +2 strength and -2 charisma type of deals. So slightly different there, but like in this context, it's giving you kind of like more, in a sense, custom ability to half orc characters and everything. So and like all of them, it has like the same overarching theme of like the same concepts, like favorite classes, feats, and archetypes, magic items that you can come across. Good old halflings, and like all of them, they have like the overall description, typical racial traits and stuff, and like it goes through racial subtypes, favorite class options, archetypes, in a sense, kind of like a reiterate class options that you can do. It goes into like new racial rules, equipment, new feats, magic items. So it does this pretty much for like every core race that you find, not only in Pathfinder's rulebook, but pretty much like a D&D rulebook as well, because there is, in a sense, a lot of overlap between the two games and everything. So the core races finishes off with the humans. So and again, the same kind of overview for them. They go like a favorite class options, the racial traits, archetypes, and like you can do bloodlines too in here. So with them, so and of course, like it also starts getting into after this, like this usual feats, and then magic items as well. And of course, then in the chapter 2, you actually get into like the featured races and everything. So like always, you have your own little tidbit on like kind of like a little like excerpt or kind of like a brief encounter that you can read before you get into the chapter. So this one pretty much follows the same concept as chapter 1. It just gives you like the kind of like alternative races that you can play, like Asamirs, Catfolk, Dampiers. You can see like kobolds, orcs, Orids, Ratfolk, the hobgoblins. So like your stereotypical monsters from previous iterations of D&D. So it opens up like in a sense the kind of common character races that like your core races would in a sense be fighting against. So they give like it's much more condensed in this chapter per each race. It doesn't necessarily go as in depth as the core races, because I think like they want to at least with this book, they're geared more towards like thinking people would do your core races, but it does open up these alternative races as well. And so like and of course the Catfolk, I'm sure everyone remembers Skyrim. Khajiit has wares. If you have coin, you can't always get away from Skyrim, can you? So, and of course they have like different artwork and stuff, so and different types of like items and stuff. And so kind of like your Dampier, so kind of like your, in a sense, like your vampire wannabes, as I call them. And you could get a Dampier fighter type of deal. And of course, it does open up the Drow, and traditionally they've been portrayed as like the kind of like the evil orcs and everything. Of course, Driss being like the famous good Drow and everything. And of course, kind of like in modern iterations, things are kind of changing with like how the races are being run and everything. So, which is probably like actually a good thing, and kind of like breaking from the stereotypes. So, like, we got the idea of the fetchlands, new race. So, like, they're kind of going through this kind of quickly, because the same kind of overarching theme is the same thing with these common races or something like called goblins. because the way they portray the information in this chapter is pretty much, like I said, and reiterate the kind of like the same overarching theme as like the core races. So hobgoblins are probably like a good would be good fighters and like or martial classes that you could come across, and of course they do actually open into like a Ifrit. I'm sure Final Fantasy fans will remember Ifrit. Now they actually portray this as an actual race in here in Pathfinder instead of just like in instance a monster or whatever that you summon from Final Fantasy. So kind of like a mix between an Ifrit and a human or like something else type of deal. So it opens up new ideas with stuff like that. And of course, your good old the kobolds, and what comes to mind is the original Baldur's Gate when you go into the mines in Nashkel. And that's a classic game, so I'm sure like anyone can look up the original Baldur's Gate from '98, and of course your good old brutish orcs, and of course you can see like how their stats are set out. They would be perfect for like playing your stereotypical barbarian. Of course, you could also like with the way they're set up, you could quite possibly like roll them up as like a fighter or a paladin and everything, but like definitely geared more towards like the barbarian type of character. And so like this whole chapter is kind of getting into like those in a sense common monster races that you can actually open up and start playing, and gives you kind of like an artwork to kind of get like a good old concepts of the characters. So seeing the rat folk, I'm sure I'm probably going to date myself, and I'm sure like, not too many remember like the movie Secrets of the Nymph, but seeing the rat folk, that movie came to mind for me. So there's like something you could like take into consideration using pop culture again for like inspiration to like make you your new races, like especially with like the upcoming chapters. So that's what this whole chapter is just like. I'll reiterate the kind of like your common classic monster races that like you'd come across, and opens up so you can start playing character classes like that. You know, the picture of Tiefling, little Undyne. Of course, my pronunciation is probably like usually crappy and everything, like it always is. But anyway, that's not the point. So then, third chapter, uncommon races, and of course, it wouldn't be complete without your typical little blurb of like people interactions and stuff. So now this pretty much gets it, like it says, uncommon races. So like changelings, and same kind of like overarching theme for just like the previous two chapters. The Draugr, the Grey Dwarfs, and goes into like in a sense races that you wouldn't necessarily like they said, uncommon, you wouldn't necessarily come across. So but it does open it up into like stuff like that to even go even further. So good old frogmen, gripples, definitely geared more towards like a swamp based type, but you could also open it up to anything. So like usual, like your whole campaign is only limited by your imagination. So Lizard Man, the lizard from Spider-Man. There goes Sam Stearns. I have yet to play anything like that. Goes Strix. And a lot of these uncommon ones, like haven't really not gotten into Pathfinders. Pathfinder, I've yet to play or DM as the Grey Gnomes, or like years ago running with like in second edition running campaigns with friends, we'd call these the Smurfs, because we'd always have like the Svirfneblin. We'd always have a tough time pronouncing names. Of course, I probably just butchered it, so we'd always just call them the Smurfs type of deal. So that's like, of course, I'm probably dating myself again with that. So go look up the Smurfs and everything if you're young. And there goes my watch. So telling me I'm running out of time. Oh no! yeah, there's something freaky you could play. The weigh-ins, and of course, in chapter 4, you're actually getting into the actual race building, where you can actually start making your own race. So like, it gives you like examples where you can pull from, like the Beastry, the Beastry 2, which I did, and of course there's also the Beastry 3, and of course like a whole idea of like a new race concept, like it takes you step by step to actually like building like your own uh, new monster, in the sense of, like, it gives you special subtypes, like half construct, half undead. So it gives you ideas on how to make like each type of like a new creature, and of course it does give you examples of creatures that like a instance could create or like kind of use pull into, like using like use these stats and stuff for different ones that are quite that have are been in or common in like the D&D and or Pathfinder from iterations of past. Good old Gargoyles. I'm sure there's fans of the cartoon from like the mid-late 90s. Always referencing pop culture like usual. And good old gnolls, the good old hyenas. And then the traditional lizard folk as well. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without the ogres. And Kathleen, I have yet to do anything with them in any of the campaigns I've ever run or been a part of. And of course, it's like a lot of this in this book. And of course, with there being so much content out there, that's you'd pretty much have to play for decades to be able to run through everything and be able to use everything in like all these like different iterations. And so, but that's the great thing about this, is like the like I've said before, the whole concepts and everything are like limitless. And of course, you got like now in like the back, you're starting to get into like the indexes and everything, and gives like you expanded race examples, and so pretty much goes over all the stuff like that have been in this book so far. So like kind of like this last little section kind of ties everything up in quick little easy use tables and everything. So, and then like the appendixes actually start with the actual traditional tables that you can see. So like and it gives you like ideas for starting ages, random starting ages, and race random starting ages. So like it gives you like a whole different tables for finding like building up those like kind of like ideas, or like kind of like those last few finishing touches to your characters and everything. And of course, it does have like a quick appendix for spells as well to pretty much finish off the book, and it has the spells per class and everything. So, and it has your typical index, so you can quickly reference stuff as well. And that's pretty much the whole idea of this book, of the advanced race guide. So this one, while not necessary, you can get up and buy to kind of like expand. Of course, with second edition being out, this is based in the first edition for it. So like, I'm sure if you did pick this up, you could, in a sense, transfer the stuff over to like the few books on like that are out for like second edition as well. So to each his own, whether you want to stick with the first edition, go with second edition, transfer this stuff over, or like just go from wherever with second edition. And I guess I've said before, the options are pretty much limitless, only limited by your imagination.